So far, British Prime Minister Sunak has hardly been able to make up any ground with his party. In polls, the Tories are still far behind the opposition Labour Party. And migration policy in particular has developed into a boomerang. The start of the year was turbulent in Britain. There were strikes in various industries. Doctors and nurses, teachers and train drivers took to the streets. High inflation and ever-increasing cost of living fueled the will to strike. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was able to claim success at the end of February when Great Britain and the European Union agreed on the so-called Windsor Framework. The agreement eased trade barriers between Great Britain and Northern Ireland caused by Brexit. Sunak, who is a Brexit supporter, praised his achievement in Northern Ireland in notable words. Northern Ireland is in the incredible unique position of having preferential access to both the domestic and EU markets, the Prime Minister said. So EU market is good? No one else has that. No one. Only you. Well, what Sunak highlighted as so exceptional ones applied to the entire kingdom before Brexit. Formation of a government in Northern Ireland was another topic, because the Windsor Framework has relaxed the relationship with the EU. In Brussels, there was a feeling that after Boris and Liz Truss, they were once again dealing with a pragmatic and reliable British Prime Minister. And that was good for Sunak's reputation. However, Sunak did not achieve another goal with the Windsor Framework. It did not lead to the formation of a regional government in Northern Ireland. The DUP, the largest Protestant Unionist party in Northern Ireland, is still blocking the formation of a government because the new agreement does not go far enough for them. From the party's perspective, trade difficulties remain which could harm the Northern Irish economy and alienate Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom. They should take a look at the Northern Irish economy, by the way. The fact that Brexit casts a long shadow became clear again in May, when Prime Minister Sunak had to go back on a promise. The EU laws still in force in Great Britain, that's around 4,000 in number, were actually supposed to be deleted by the end of 2023. While Brexit hardliners welcomed the plan, business and the opposition warned of legal uncertainty and bureaucratic chaos. Others believed that the project could not be implemented in such a short time because the authorities did not have enough staff available for it. The government ultimately had to overturn the plan, which earned Sunak criticism from the right wing of his own party. Former Prime Minister Johnson was also making headlines again. And Sunak has hardly had any quiet periods this year to get the Conservative Party out of its consistently poor poll numbers. At the beginning of June, ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson made headlines again when he appeared before the Parliamentary Committee on the Partygate affair. Hand on heart, he did not lie to Parliament and acted in good faith, is at least what Johnson asserted. As Prime Minister, he had repeatedly assured the House of Commons that government employees would behave in accordance with the rules during the corona pandemic. In fact, there were celebrations in government buildings while the population was supposed to adhere to strict distance rules. The committee ultimately came to the conclusion that Johnson lied to Parliament. In order to avoid being suspended as a Member of Parliament, Johnson gave up his mandate, but used his resignation letter for a bitter reckoning. He accused the committee of conducting a witch hunt, of wanting to take revenge for Brexit and reverse it. He accused his successor Sunak of not doing a properly conservative government job and of pursuing the wrong tax policy. There was chaos, resentment and ignorance in recent weeks, and Johnson, his former chief advisor Dominic Cummings, as well as former ministers and member of the crisis team, have testified in another investigative committee to examine corona crisis management. Sunak also had to be questioned. As Chancellor of the Exchequer or Finance Minister, he launched the Eat Out to Help Out aid program in the summer of 2020. It was a subsidy program that was intended to make restaurant visits cheaper in order to support the catering industry. However, the number of corona infections then rose again. As the public learned in the course of the investigation, Sunak was dubbed Dr. Death for his program by a leading government scientific advisor. And that wasn't a good headline for Sunak this year either. The overall picture that emerges from this committee of inquiry is also devastating. When 10 Downing Street should have been at its best in the face of the pandemic, there was chaos, resentment, and ignorance. And one topic that has dominated the entire year of 2023 is migration policy. Sunak has promised as part of a 5-year point plan to stop the boats, to stop the inflatable dinghies on which asylum seekers come illegally to Great Britain across the English Channel. He announced new laws and let potential arrivals known as a deterrent. If they come into this country illegally, they will be imprisoned and quickly deported. However, this announcement is proving difficult to implement. The government's planned deportation of refugees to Rwanda has not yet taken place. The highest British court, the Supreme Court, has classified Rwanda as an unsafe third country. The government is currently trying to make improvements with emergency legislation to make deportations possible. However, the division in the Conservative Party is again very clear on this issue, almost like it was during Brexit times. If Prime Minister Sunak fails to get Rwanda legislation through Parliament in early 2024, his days may be numbered. And the Interior Minister, who is now responsible for this, is making completely different headlines at the moment as well. British Home Secretary James Cleverly has apologized for making a joke about knockout drops at a reception. According to a report in the Sunday Mirror newspaper, and I know how to take that, he told female guests that it wasn't really illegal if there was just a little bit of Rohypnol in their drink every night. Cleverly also laughed and said that the secret to a long marriage is making sure your partner is always slightly sedated, so she doesn't realize there are better men out there, as the newspaper reported. Oh boy. And a spokesman for Cleverly said that the Home Secretary had made a clearly ironic joke in a private conversation that was always understood as such, for which he apologized. Cleverly has been heading the Interior Ministry or the Home Ministry for several weeks, was previously Foreign Minister and is married. And shortly before the comment, he announced new measures against the misuse of knockout drops. Spiking means that perpetrators put drugs in their victims' drinks, for example, in order to rape them later. And women's rights organizations sharply criticize Cleverly's statements. The Fawcett Society said it was disgusting that Cleverly, as a minister responsible for women's safety, thought that something as horrific as drugging women was laughable. The organization called for his resignation, and the charity Women's Aid warned him to take spiking seriously. And if you want to know something else right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.